This podcast is brought to you by the Kansas City Barbecue Store, the official provider of barbecue supplies to listeners of Pitmaster. If you haven't visited the Kansas City Barbecue Store in person or on the web, they literally have every supply that you can think of to make you not only successful at competition barbecue, but also the king of your cul-de-sac. From smokers and fuel to rubs and sauces, the Kansas City Barbecue Store has everything and anything you could want. And get this, as a listener of the OVS Pitmaster podcast, you can get 10% off of your order during National Barbecue Month, which is May, by using the code PITPOD, P-I-T-P-O-D, all caps, for online orders at www.thekansascitybarbecuestore.com. If they don't have it, you probably don't need it. So visit thekansascitybarbecuestore.com today for all your barbecue needs. Good morning. My name is Luke Darnell, the host of the Pitmaster podcast. Got a co-host this morning.
Hey, man. How's it going?
Mr. Brian Corbett from Smoking Scully's. I'm down here in North Carolina. He was kind enough to house me and take me golfing yesterday, so we had a great time. But this morning, we've also got with us a man that wakes up in the morning and pisses excellence. It's pretty early this morning, so I don't know if he's already done that. But we've got Joe Pearce from Slaps. How are you, Joe?
I'm good, guys. Just let you know I've pissed 3 times already this morning.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Oozing excellence.
I don't know about that, but glad to be here, Luke and Brian.
Thanks, Joe.
So one of the things, and Brian and I were talking about this morning, is probably one of the most important lessons that I've learned in barbecue. I learned from you, and I wanted to kind of focus in on that this morning. In that, I think it was 3 years ago, I was able to come out to Kansas City early for the Royal, and we went meat shopping for the Royal. And it absolutely blew me away just watching the way that you think about getting meat for a contest. I think we went through 100 pork butts and 100 racks of ribs, maybe even more, just to find those 8 perfect pieces of meat for both contests.
Right. And
that's when I realized that maybe I need to do things a little differently. And so one of the things that as we've gotten to know each other over the years is that, you take a very specific approach to each and every contest in terms of just being detail oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, man. So I do, 90% of the contest by myself. So having a regimented process, having something that I can repeat week in and week out is kind of what I strive for. So if I don't have the ability to do something the exact same way every week, I really start kind of losing focus, losing attention, and it really is reflected in my scores. Just because I'm not committed to cooking a barbecue contest. So for me, it starts on, the Sunday before a barbecue contest, and it's going to my grocery store. That's usually when I buy chicken, as long as they remember to order it. And then I get all the accoutrements that, I run out of the trailer: paper towels, cleaner, brown sugar, honey, stuff like that. And so that's kind of the Sunday process. And Monday I pull, briskets out of the fridge. If I'm using frozen ribs, I'll usually start thawing ribs on Monday. If they're fresh, I'll at least start looking through ribs Monday and Tuesday. Tuesday is the next day. I get, luckily I have a restaurant that Slaps, and I can look through quite a bit of pork and ribs. And so we get a truck in on Tuesday. So I get to look through those. And Wednesday I trim. Thursday, if I'm not going to a contest, I'm getting the trailer completely loaded, but most likely I'm driving to a contest Thursday night, and then Friday morning and Saturday is go time. So, that process happens every week of a contest, no matter what. And I don't like to vary too much, but having that regimented of a schedule really helps me stay focused. And, I have time planned out in my week to select meat, trim meat, make injections, buy rubs, buy sauces, and get everything ready to go.
Right. And don't forget your Thursday phone call to me. That's
yeah, I didn't put that one in there, but yeah, no, we do a Thursday on the way to a contest phone call, and that always just gets our head right and gets us in the right place, and it's worked. I think 50% or what did they say? 50% of the time it works every time.
that's right.
And but no, yeah. So like it's that kind of stuff that man, you just have to have that schedule when you're cooking as many as I have over the last few years. If I was cooking one every other month, I probably wouldn't care too much. But man, I have a full-time job, and I have a wife and a kid, and I have 15 acres I got to mow and cut down trees on. And I mean, there's always something pulling me away from that schedule. So if I commit to cooking a barbecue contest, I'm going to commit to running my schedule, and that's setting the time aside that I need to do to make sure that I have good meat, everything that everything I need in the trailer. Like, it's very rare that I show up to a contest and have to go to a neighbor and say, "Hey man, do you got any foil pans I can borrow?" Because if I say to my schedule, I have a checklist and mark it all off, and I'm good to go.
Wow, you just described what I do every contest.
Same here. So I am notorious for borrowing something. It's actually kind of become a little running joke around here. If I borrow something in the last 12 months, I've won. And there's been times I've borrowed stuff I didn't even need because I realized on Saturday morning, I'm like, shit, I hadn't borrowed anything lately.
Right.
I had to borrow not because I forgot it, because mine broke. I had to borrow a squirt bottle for apple juice from a guy in Gardner, Kansas, Chris Travers, with Three Pigs Smoking, and it was one of those pressurized orange automatic, sprayers, and I think Rod Gray really used them back in the day. And anyway, I borrowed it from him, and he said, "Hey man, it's completely extra. Just use it. I don't need it back, until the end of the contest." And anyway, so I cooked the contest. I cooked the 709, just absolutely nut drug everybody. And I told him, I was like, "Hey buddy, you're not getting this back. I'm keeping this forever."
Right. So, and that's the danger.
Right.
When you borrow something and like, "Hey man, sorry about this." I lost the lock on the padlock for my trailer door, and Mark Gibbs had a brand new one. He's like, "Yeah, you can borrow it for the week," and then we won the next weekend. And I'm like, "Well,
you borrowed your lock."
Right. that's not probably bad. But I think it's more than, you've talked a lot about having the right meat and supplies, but I think in conversations, you think about things that affect the cook that I don't think a lot of people do, including, elements like, elevation and pressure and stuff like that. One day you just astounded me. I don't know if you were in the zone or not, but you're like, "Well, we're at this elevation, so it's probably going to finish at this temperature." And I was kind of just like, I kind of hung up the phone and went like, "Jesus, I'm not even close to this."
Well, when you travel a lot and you go to different parts of the country, you have to pay attention to the elements. When you go down to Arizona, there's no humidity, so if you're not running some sort of water pans in your smoker, your cook's going to come out different. You know what I mean? If you're cooking in Colorado and you're above a mile high, your boiling point's different, and stuff like that. So it's just, if a storm's rolling in and barometric pressure drops, that's going to change the pressure of your airflow in your cooker. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much stuff that goes into being able to recreate a process week in and week out. I talk a lot about, like mass airflow volume with my smoker, and being able to have a firebox where I can add a ton of coals if I need to on a freezing cold day, and not necessarily because the cooker needs it, but it might just be every time I open the door, I'm letting 50 degrees of the smoker drop, and it might take 5 minutes to get that smoker back up to temperature. So on a super cold day, I'll run a little bigger of a fire, even if it means I'm going to have to watch the smoker constantly to make sure it's not cooking too hot. I can close the damper on the back even more, close the exhaust down a ton, and really focus on watching the smoker, where I have a process, and Brian has seen it when I cook a barbecue contest. I use like 9 splits of wood, 2 bags of charcoal, and I have a time frame when I add charcoal every single hour, 45 minutes, whenever it is, and I follow that religiously, and I don't have to really manage the smoker a whole lot as long as there's not crazy elements going on. So when it's super cold outside or even super hot outside, maybe I'll run a little less fire in there, so I don't have to worry about it getting hot. But you know what I mean? When you have all those elements going in and you're traveling all the country and you're trying to win a barbecue contest, it's kind of stuff you just need to think about. You don't necessarily have to. I know there's teams that have paid less attention to one barbecue contest before, but it's just not how my brain works. I need this is just me in general. Anything that I do, whether it's running the restaurant or purchase of meat for the restaurant or getting ready for a barbecue contest, the more details I know about whatever situation I'm going into, the better I feel prepared. And so I get I yell at Cisco, who's our meat provider, a lot, because I ask him and I say, I need to know every step of the process and where it failed, so I can make an educated decision whether I need to do something different for this day or this week or this month, based on the needs of my restaurant. And so I feel the same way when I'm doing barbecue contests. Like, I need to know how many teams, I need to know where I'm located on a map, I need to know what the wind direction is, I need to know how hot it'd be, I need to know the elevation. You know what I mean? So I can make an educated decision how to position myself to have the best chance of success for that weekend. And so it's just, I'm a little analytical the way my brain works, and it's just kind of what I have to have for me to feel like I even have a chance of being successful.
Right. I mean, some of my favorite conversations have been, we have our Thursday phone call, then you call me early Friday morning and say, yeah, it was 3 a.m. and I couldn't sleep, and I woke up and the wind was blowing a different direction, so I just moved the whole trailer.
Right.
That is where most people
happened that happened at that Gardner contest. But I moved on Saturday morning because the wind was whipping and circling in a parking lot, and I was tucked into these trees, and I spent about an hour trying to get the pit to do what it was supposed to do, and it was just 30-40 mile an hour of circle wind right off of the porch of my trailer. So I just hooked up and pulled to a different spot and went a different direction and won the contest. So there's wasn't everybody too happy with me, but it happened. So
Joe, you alluded to this a few minutes ago, but I took a class that proved to be very pivotal in my barbecue career last February. And out of that class, it might have been a slaps class. I picked up a lot of detail, and that was some of the really aha moments, was just the detail to things like you're discussing now. And if I remember, your timeline, I do. If you moved your trailer at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, you were already fired up.
Yeah, no, I was. So I lied at 3:30. I put brisket on at 4:15, and I had brisket on the smoker, and I could not get it to consistently flow the right direction because of the wind that was swirling. And so it didn't matter which direction I moved the stack. I have a rotating stack on, and I would put the curve side in the direction of the wind was blowing, and I couldn't get it to do what it was supposed to do. And I've never had that problem on this trailer. And so, yeah, I had to make a decision, right? I literally could not get the pit over like 220 degrees, which even then it would drop to 100 or pick up to 400 based on which direction the wind was blowing every 5 minutes. And so I did. I hooked up the trailer and just basically put it out in the middle of a field where they used to have teams, but they didn't have a ton of teams this year. So I just put it out in a field and faced it in the direction that the wind was going to face directly into the firebox. And, everything smoothed out. Pit came right up to temp. I backed everything down, ran at 325, and had a real good day.
Yeah. Using nature's guru.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's impressive. That takes some cojones too. I mean, meat already on the pit, and you're moving the entire rig. But
yeah, and there's a bit of we some teams questioned whether that was in the rules to be able to do or not, right? Because technically you need to keep your meat in your spot, and you have one assigned to you. And I moved, you know what I mean, and I was cooking in a different spot that wasn't assigned to me. But at 4 o'clock in the morning, it's not like the organizer and the reps were out there for me to have a conversation with to say, hey, I'm having a problem. It's either me be able to cook or me go home. And so I just made a decision. As soon as the organizer got there that day, I said, hey, I was having an issue with my pit. I had to move and put a different direction. And she was kind of like, I think she was annoyed that I drove on the grass. She goes like, well, it's already done. And I said, well, yeah, I was just calling to tell you what happened or letting you know. And she seemed a little frustrated about it, but I didn't really care. But the reps were like, hey, you obviously had to do what you had to do. They were perfectly okay with it. But yeah, I think if I wouldn't have won, I don't think anybody would have cared. but I won. I won pretty big. So the best part about that contest was I made Brad Leininger was there. We were chasing team of the year back and forth, and I had to leave early to go do a catering at Slaps. And I made Brad pick up all my awards, and so I won, and he had to go pick up all my stuff. And he won I won like an in-home, like built-in water purifier, like you had to put in your home, and he happened to be building a house. And so I think that water purifier is in his house because that was the price I had to pay for him to pick up my awards. So that's pretty funny.
That's pretty amazing. Amazing. But the lesson here, folks, is that every detail matters, and don't think that it doesn't. And anything that you can do to give yourself that little bit more knowledge or advantage or just mindset is going to help your end result. This podcast is brought to you by BarbecueData.com. BarbecueData.com is your one-stop shop for all of your barbecue competition data. Historical data, calls, wins, placements, everything under one roof. It's a great way not only to track yourself in the standings, but also to track how you improve your scores from year to year. Listeners of this podcast can receive 20% off of a new subscription to BarbecueData.com with the code PITPOD. That's one word, all capital letters, PITPOD, PITPOD. So check your team scores, check on others, and do it all on BarbecueData.com.
Yeah, we started this conversation talking about meat selection for the Royal. That was your experience going with Joe. But that's the kind of attention to detail that you seem to give every contest, if it's a 20-team contest or if it's a world championship. Is that correct, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, I have a little bit of a advantage. Sorry about that, guys. I have a little bit of an advantage in the fact that I can look through, 60, 70 cases of ribs a week and 20 cases of pork. So it's easy for me to go pork and rib shopping. But I will, unfortunately, it's a fortunate and unfortunate, right? The fortunate thing is I have the advantage. The unfortunate thing is it's time consuming. You know what I mean? Because I want to see if there's a better one. So I will sit there and I will look through endless amounts of ribs and pork butts. And luckily I have staff that will, when we get a truck, I have the pitmasters or the person putting the truck away, they'll take all the meat out of the packaging that it comes in. And so now I've trained them to put the money muscles facing up in these meat bus tubs that we have. So I can just open the bus tub lids and be like, oh, that's a bad one. That's a good one. That's a bad one. And kind of move on from there. But ribs are the same way. They have them in big totes and I'll just grab 2 or 3 totes and look through them and hopefully find 4 or 5 good ones and move on. But briskets, I tell this story in the class and I don't know if it was the one you took, Brian, but when 2020 when in October, when I had a chance to win team of the year, I think Brad and I cooked seven or eight contests in the month of October. And we were everywhere from Wyoming to Mississippi, to out there in Virginia. And I thawed for seven or eight contests. I thawed like 25 briskets, Snake River Golds, big ones, 20 plusers. And
that's nuts.
And I didn't use them all. Right. So, but I wasn't going to take, I needed 1 point to win team of the year, and I wasn't going to let a mediocre brisket stop me. You know what I mean? If I wasn't going to settle for not having the absolute best brisket that week that I could have. And yeah, man. So luckily I had an outlet to use those briskets at Slaps. But I did. And I don't think people have the ability to do that, probably financially. And I can write all that stuff off at the restaurant. So it's nice to have, but at the same time, I don't even think people have that mindset sometimes. You know what I mean?
There are a lot of factors in play there that you just touched on. I mean, the finances, freezer space, and outlet to be able to get rid of that. I mean, people can't thaw out 10 or 20 or whatever you did, gold grade Snake River Farms, and not have a way to get rid of them. You do, and that's fortunate. But a lot of us, and what I picked up off of this is, instead of me pulling out one brisket and thawing it, I could, especially if it's a very important contest, a bigger one, I could thaw out two.
Yeah.
Because they can carry, briskets are a little more forgiving in carrying over than pork products or chicken for certain. But that's I don't remember that story, but that's
it might have happened after your class, but it's all about giving myself the best chance to succeed, right? And sometimes you can tell that a brisket's great through the packaging, and what I get from Snake River is always very good, but sometimes you need one that's just spectacular. And what I took to those contests that month of October was spectacular. Like every single brisket was, 2-3 inches thick, a ton of marbling, shaped right. It didn't have a giant fat seam in it. And that was the sacrifice that I was willing to make to try to win team of the year. And I would tell you, looking back on it, I probably didn't need to do it, but I get a little obsessive, a little crazy sometimes, but yeah, so it happened. And, I always thought 2 briskets for a contest, and I trimmed one, and I picked the better of the 2 that I think is going to work for me. And if that one doesn't turn out to be good, if it's too thin, it doesn't have enough marbling, if I think the cryovac packaging broke and it oxidized the wrong color, like there's a lot of factors that go into why I pick a brisket. But I will trim the next one. And if it's for a contest in Lansing, Kansas, like I have this week, I'd probably pick one of those 2. But if it was a contest for the Jack or the Royal and I didn't like either one of them, I'd go thaw and trim another one. It's just it's a little bit of a waste, but again, I can sell it at Slaps and make some money back on it, and it's not the end of the world. But if I didn't have that outlet, I don't know if I would even have that thought process of trimming and thawing and trimming as many briskets as I need to find a good one. Right. You know what I mean? Right. That's the reality and the benefit I have of having a restaurant. So,
well, ladies and gentlemen, that's a morning dive into the psyche of Joe Pearce.
It's a lot, guys. You open that can,
Brian's like, I need a nap.
I got to take some notes and take a nap.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, are you cooking this weekend?
Yeah. I'm going out to Lansing, Kansas, which is only about 25 minutes from Slaps, about 40 minutes from my house, and they haven't had the contest for a couple years, and they always do a good job out there. So, and I think the last time it was put on, I won it. So I'm gonna go back and try to go back to back at that contest. So we'll see.
Sweet.
We'll be pulling for you.
We'll be pulling for you, and I'll talk to you on Thursday.
Sounds like a plan. I'll give you a call.
All right, bud. Thanks a lot.
No problem, guys.
Thank you for listening to Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast. Be sure to subscribe and like the podcast, rate the podcast, and to share it out with your friends. Also, be sure to check out the Old Virginia Smoke TikTok as well. Old Virginia Smoke, one word. That's all you have to search for. It's hilarious. Tune in next week for another great episode of Pitmaster. For companies interested in advertising, please contact Old Virginia Smoke directly via www.oldvirginiasmoke.com. Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast, is edited by Chris Sedanka. Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast, is a property of Old Virginia Smoke, LLC. All rights reserved. Copyright 2022.
Old Virginia.